The new Flat Rate Podcast.
The new Flat Rate!
For contractors ready to boost tickets, simplify business, and gain freedom. Today we sat down with Brennen Smith. He's a fractional CMO and the owner of Compass Fractional. And now your host, Danielle Putnam.
Hey there, my name's Danielle Putnam. I'm the CEO of the new Flat Rate, hanging out with actually a new friend of mine, Brennen Smith from North Carolina. Brennen is a fractional CMO, and his company is called Compass Fractional. Brennen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Danielle. I've learned so much from all your content online, so I'm excited to talk to you today.
Oh, that means a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you. So tell me what you love about living in North Carolina. You ever go to Sugar Mountain or Boone?
I actually went to App State, so just lived right around there for a long time. What I love about North Carolina, I do love the fall here. Not a big fan of the summertime with all the humidity and bugs.
Yeah. Do you guys have a lot of snakes? You have snakes there in the mountains?
Yeah, a lot of snakes. But I do love being close to the mountains and close to the beach. So I think it's got to be a top 5 state, I think. North Carolina, South Carolina. The Carolinas are pretty great. So
I think they're awesome. Your mountains are beautiful. Carolinas and Virginia, you guys have such great 4 seasons, I think.
Yeah.
Which you're lucky because you get the snow. I got kicked off of, and I shouldn't say this. We should get right to the point talking about you. I know, but I did get kicked off of Sugar Mountain snowboarding one day, and I got my ticket pulled.
What were you
And
doing?
Something stupid.
You were in the woods or something?
No, but I wish, right? I wish I was doing something actually really cool. I love to snowboard, and on this particular day, there was, some people with us, and my sister-in-law was just learning, and so she was just going to ride the bunny hill for a minute, and so I had my ticket on my glove, and I was like, "Here you go," and I just handed it to her, and then I got it back. And somehow the lift line saw that. And so they kind of like arrested me and took me to the bosses of the place. And they yelled at me, screamed at me, made me buy another ticket for my sister-in-law. But it was the way they treated me. It was that they were yelling at me as if I was a disobedient child. And I was like, I was just letting her use it for a minute. But to them, they were so by the rules, by the book, like white or black. And I live in the gray when it comes to that. I was like, oh, she's just doing it once. So it bothered me for a while, so I did not go back to Sugar Mountain for a couple of years.
Yeah, I get that.
My fault. Anyway, so as a fractional CMO, CMO stands for Chief Marketing Officer. Can you tell us a little bit about who you work with and what you do? Because I know it's really valuable, and I'd like people to hear more and have a better understanding of why they need this.
Yeah, I think so. Fractional really just means part-time, and it's different from just a consultant because a fractional CMO or a CFO, they really become part of your leadership team. And a lot of HVAC, plumbing, electrical, home service businesses don't have that marketing leadership. It's usually the owner, maybe a GM, maybe a family member who's kind of like running the marketing, but they don't truly have the expertise to guide someone in where do we spend more money? Where are we wasting money? So having somebody who has that experience is very valuable in the sense that you're not spinning your wheels and wasting a lot of time and money.
Well, and the underlying thing that I'm hearing here is strategy also. So you're able to work with them and set a forecasted strategy of where do you want to go with your marketing instead of just pulling triggers today of let's send out a postcard, but let's actually come up with a plan and a strategy to follow. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. So it's, talking to them about what type of homeowners do you actually want to work with? What zip codes, what areas? Let's build a bigger plan than just like this week's activities into what is our actual budget for the year based on how much money we want to make, how aggressive we want to be. Where have we seen success before? Building the brand in terms of like, how do we really differentiate ourselves from all the other companies out there? And you can do that in many ways, whether it's your offer or your pricing or your service, but a lot of companies do look the same. And so being able to take a step back and say like, who do you really want to be? Let's think about this 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance. How do we make you look completely different? I have this book here. Purple Cow, blurred out.
I love that book. Yeah, I
Um,
love that book.
and I really think that's super important. A lot of businesses aren't thinking about that. They're like, well, what does everyone else do? And they're just doing the same thing. But really, I try to ask when I'm working with clients, where do you want to go? Who do you want to be? What kind of company do you want to be? That helps guide the strategy. Um,
Well, that
and
authenticity is more fun. Like
yeah,
if you actually are allowed to think, who do I want to be? What do I want my service company represented for? What do I really want my customers to think about us? Like if you could be really honest about that, it would be more fun to build that company than trying to
yeah,
be what everybody else is doing.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so some people, don't have an answer for that, right? It's just, and so kind of help guide them through that process of, you know, asking the right questions. Sometimes it takes time. It's not a perfect thing, but you're always kind of you're moving in a direction, right? You're not going to know 100%. This is exactly, well, you might know 100% this is exactly who you want to be, but it does take refinement and improvement. But I think a bigger thing too is there's such a focus on digital,
Mm-hmm.
that there's so many other channels to pursue. So I'm not coming in there strictly to just be like, this is what we do. We do Google ads and this and that and this and that, all digital, but also what are some strategies for traditional stuff? Are we spending too much money somewhere that's not really adding a whole lot of value? It might look like it, but truly, is it profitable channel or
Yeah, and I
not?
would think that somebody like you would take that fine look into that of where really are the leads coming in that actually do drive revenue into the business
Yeah.
instead of just all leads. Hey, if you, and I know this is just kind of like a guess off, maybe but might be a guess, but best guess, out of the contractors that you work with, the the owners, the founders, those at the C level, are they more visionary or operational? Do you know percentage breakdown if you had to guess?
Um, Good question. I feel like the ones that I work with are typically technician engineers, like that's their background.
Hmm.
Um, uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I would say. Maybe 50-50.
Well, and so
But
maybe it's not even a good question. I just know that growing up with my dad as a contractor, he was such a visionary. And so how do I
yeah.
say, like the urge to do something today. Oh, there's no calls on the board. What should we do? We have to do something today. Let's do something. And it was often, and my dad is brilliant, so this is nothing negative towards him, but it was often a one-time fix of, all right,
Right.
we need calls today. So let's do this one-time marketing. Let's throw this arrow and hope, or a Hail Mary. Let's hope something happens.
Hmm.
Whereas if we had been working with a CMO to help us set a strategy for when do we do what, and I know that you had mentioned something called revenue levers. Would
Right.
that play into here? If we had a strategy, would there be revenue levers that we could pull along the way?
Yeah. So there's a great book called The Goal, and it's all about the theory of constraints. And so there's levers and there's constraints. Levers grow revenue, constraints cap revenue. And so any home service business has a million of those. You have levers and constraints. So lever would be like leads, right? We could do ads, but a constraint would be we're missing calls, we're not handling the calls well. So like the capture of calls is a constraint. So the thing that also is a little bit different about me is I'm looking at not just the lead gen stuff, but what happens after the phone rings, getting to estimates, uh, managing memberships, renewals, all that stuff, and getting like repeat business. Um, so if you go through that entire, what I call like the revenue system from lead gen to repeat customer, there's so many
Hmm.
levers and there's so many constraints within the business. Now, some people's constraints going to be like, if we pull the lever of leads, more leads, you're probably going to have technician capacity constraints, right? You can't handle all that. You could probably take all calls. Can you actually get somebody out there? So that's a constraint. So we can't just double calls. Or usually what is happening, and the ones that I'm usually focused on the most is your lead capture or conversion optimized? So you might be spending 10, 15 grand a month on ads. But how many of those actually turn into an appointment? How many appointments run? How many turn into jobs? So looking there might be a lot more to, squeeze the lemon, so to speak. So that's typically where, like, if I start with somebody, I'm going to try to find out how can we make the most, like, basically it's all about how do you make cash flow through the business more quickly, and get more efficient with cash flow. So my goal when I first started is where can we unlock those things and discover some hidden revenue? Usually it's in the open estimates. If there's no follow-up process, there's definitely, you're missing thousands or hundreds of thousands, depending on how big the company
Was
is.
it you that was telling me the other day that when you start working with a new company, and for example, if they're using Service Titan and you start looking into their Service Titan, they have like $2 million of open estimates?
Yeah, 2 to 4 million. Some of them could be really old, right? They just haven't cleaned them out. But they never got a decision from them. So whether that's using, you can be casual about it. Like it depends on the company, right? Who do you want to be? Some people want to be very aggressive, right? We're gonna text them, like, a few hours later after they get the estimate, whatever. Like, we're gonna call them, we're gonna be pretty aggressive. Some people want to be a little bit more casual, but having at least some kind of automation, if you don't have anything going on and nobody's following up at all, there's probably a lot of installs or whatever that could move faster. Or you get a yes or a no, right, quicker, so like, that's off the table. So that's just setting up Marketing Pro to have a few emails and text messages come out. Typically people are going to respond, right? And so it's being thoughtful too, like, about what you're actually saying in there, and trying to provide value, and you're trying to get them to call you or respond to the email. You're not trying to pester people, but
Yeah, I know as a business owner, it's easy to feel overwhelmed
yeah,
with, yeah, I know I need to do that. I know I need to do that. But what Brennan is saying here is, and you can hear it, I can hear it when you're talking, like you have that strategist mindset and that process follow through mindset of let's make sure that all the dots are connected. And you even said here, and I love that you said this, is some people don't want to do 1,000 text messages afterwards. Some of
yeah,
them just want to lightly, right? And so you're speaking to what culture, what kind of
yeah,
company, what brand, what do you want your company style to be like? And then it sounds like you're listening to these contractors and then putting that into
yeah,
play for them. So it doesn't have to be so overwhelming.
yeah. And I really believe every touch point, every communication with a client is marketing, and is building trust, eroding it, or building, like, the persona and the brand that you want to have. So if you want to be the super aggressive type, that's cool, and we can make that, happen in the messaging. If you want to be like the laid back, more chill about it, not pressuring people, we can also do that as well. I like a combination of the both, right? It's like you're hungry for the business, but you're also respectful, and you show you're on top of it, but you're also not being annoying. So
Well, and sometimes it's hard to determine. So as a business owner, if you ask them the question, which one do they want to be? Sometimes I'm like, okay, well, you're the expert. Like, which one should I do, right? And so
yeah,
it's really great to be able to utilize somebody like Brennan to say, all right, from best practices, what you see, how can we work together to set this up so that it works well for my business? We were on a leadership team meeting earlier today, and I told them all, I was like, we got to utilize the partners that we have and the experts that we have that are already out there in the space doing the
yeah,
things they already know. And so, as business owners, let's quit trying to reinvent the wheel all the time, especially things like this, because you're talking to other business owners, you know what works well. And it sounds like you pull all the reports and look at all the data too.
yeah, yeah, exactly. um no, some companies have good reporting and they might know what's going on. I'd say that's more rare. Some people, have no clue, what's actually going on. A lot of times I see, if they are on Service Titan or something, the data's not up to date, not correct, or things are being, underutilized. So you kind of have to put your detective hat on to figure out like what's going on. But I was working with a client yesterday, just on some of this stuff, the estimate automations, even like dispatch and arrival, right? Because I noticed in some of the messages people were calling. I was listening to the calls and people kept calling in saying, "When are you guys coming out?" And I was like, "Why don't we turn on the notifications so people know?" Like they don't have this uncertainty of like what time are you guys coming again? Are you coming now? It says, is there a window? Like,
Yeah.
so now we can make less calls happening in your
Yeah.
call center if we just start doing that. And then they start to piece together operations and marketing really has to work together to get rid of the constraints and efficiency and make everyone's lives a little bit easier. So there's a lot of things that, people that even work with me don't realize we're going to get into that type of stuff because it is a ton of operation stuff that happens.
Yeah, and operations is very closely tied to marketing
Yeah.
and what you're sending, how you're doing it, the messaging, the
Yeah.
reminders, the follow-up, the referrals, the 5-star reviews,
Yeah.
how the
And
operations are handled and the marketing together.
yeah. And what you guys talk about with pricing is a constraint and a lever, right? And it's probably I think the most important, like something you could do that would immediately drastically could change your business very
Mm-hmm.
quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very hard, like it is very hard to keep growing the marketing if you're not profitable and you have
Mm-hmm.
low margins. Because it takes money to acquire new customers. So you're putting a cap on how much you can actually grow if you're not profitable.
Yeah.
So it affects everything in your business. If you can't collect the cash, if you can't charge more, all those
Mm-hmm.
things, it puts a giant constraint across the entire business. Who you
Mm-hmm.
can actually hire and pay, can you actually build a good team? It limits like everything.
We were looking at a billable hour calculator earlier today, and what companies are using as their billable hour versus what it should be is drastically different. And then the company we were looking at today, for example, their billable hour was $179, but what it should be after our calculation is 341. Now, 341 isn't astronomical. We've got plenty there at 500. 341 is not 500. But from 179, it was quite the jump, right? And what
Yeah,
we've been
eye
talking,
opening, right? It's like, oh
eye-opening, like,
wow,
well,
we should
what do
be.
you mean? Well, you said that you wanted to be 25% profit. You said that. So with that, then your billable hours 341. But where
Yeah,
you are now, it's 2% at the 179. So if you want to stay at 179 and not raise your prices, that's okay. But the job of the CEO is to protect the company profit. So somewhere your expenses
yeah,
are out of control. If you want to stay at that 179, stay there. But you better get rid of a bunch of expenses, and that might mean all kinds of things that you're not willing to get rid of. And so, to your
right.
point, it's a lever. It's very easy to take a look at your pricing and to price for where you want to be profitably, where you want your company to be, and so that you can afford this growth and the marketing that you need to be doing. I found that really interesting. The company we were looking at today is, although, yeah, where you should be and where you are, it is a gap, but we have to bridge that gap.
Yeah, yeah. And
Otherwise,
I
go
think,
work for somebody else. Because it'd be way less stressful, honestly.
yeah,
Most likely, you'd be a really great, um, oftentimes, lead technician. We've got all these owners that are super
mhm,
techs, right? And if it's
yeah,
a stressful, non-profitable business, they could be making so much money working for somebody else and they could go home early. And I don't want that. I just want to encourage, let's look at your prices and price right. And then let's have Brennan look at your marketing and say, all right, what holes do we need to
yeah,
fill?
yeah. And HVAC plumbing is real. So it's much cheaper to market to repeat customers. Like you've already acquired them. Most of the data says 5 to 7 times cheaper than acquiring a new customer. So
Mhm.
you need to keep up the communication, keep up the service. You want to keep building that base of repeat business, but you also need to bring in new customers. There's many ways to go about that. It's not just spending money on ads. And like I said, you could pull the lever of let's just spend more money of ads on ads. Let's just flood it. But there might still be a constraint of how are you actually handling the calls. And usually there's a lot of holes there. Calls are being missed. I've worked with some clients where the CSR for some reason was just in a month there was 14 people. They just said, "Oh no, we don't do that." It's like, but they're talking to me saying we need, like, why aren't we have enough appointments? It's like, well, there was 14 appointments that were just turned down.
Right.
Like,
right.
And so, yeah, it really is, like, I would say, like you said, there's a million things you could do. There's a million fires to put out, but that would be my recommendation for, like, the first place to look for constraints and issues is your call center and then your estimate follow-ups. Those are the two places that can make more money flow through the business if you fix them.
That's really great advice. Talk about B2B, business to business partnerships. How does that play a role here in home services?
So yeah, this is just another channel for, HVAC plumbing is great for. So if you set up a partnership with anybody who's in the home that doesn't do what you do. So if you just do HVAC, then you can talk to, plumbing company that only does plumbing or electrical or even mold remediation, home inspectors. And the way you go about that, if you don't know anybody, is figure out, Google around who are these companies, figure out who's a good reputation. Then you've got a cold call. You got to get in touch with them. Most of them are not getting cold calls from other
true, right?
trades companies. So
yeah,
you're not going to have a lot of competition.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be that hard. If you really like the company, take them out to dinner and talk about, like, how can we give each other business? And I even recommend, if you have an ad budget, taking it and saying, how much are we willing to pay somebody for a very hot lead, right? If it's a plumber who's in a house and they, there's a big need for HVAC stuff. If they refer somebody and that person used them, they're way, way more likely going to close than just someone from a Google ad. So
you'd recommend paying. So the plumbing company and the HVAC company, the plumbing company gets a lead from the HVAC company. The HVAC, they pay each other.
Yeah. So, like, you refer work back and forth, but you figure out, like, what you're willing to pay each other, what the terms are. You want it to be a win. It's a win-win-win for you, for the plumbing company, and for the customer, because they're getting great service, right? You want to work with, have partnerships with companies you like and trust, right? So if you're very customer oriented and you care about them, you're not trying to, sell them whatever, you're not trying to, you want a long-term relationship with them. So you want another company that aligns with those values too. And then, you set up those terms, you have a budget, you figure out, like, when you're going to pay each other, how you're going to track that, all that stuff. Like, it becomes important to set that up. But this is a huge area, right? Like, think about home inspectors. Every new homes, or not even new, every home sold has got somebody in there. And, hey, this person's got a 40-year-old HVAC system in their house. You should, I could introduce you to them or whatever, like, or even them letting you know, right? And then you figuring out how do you outbound to that person or whatever. But, like, figuring that stuff out there's just a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and the home inspector, I don't know why we keep getting stuck in this little thing. Someday in life, I hope to buy a brand new home, but we like to buy 100-year-old homes, and we like to renovate them.
Yeah, we bought a 50-year-old. Yeah.
Someday, I hope to be like those wonderful people that buy new houses. But until then, in these 100-year-old homes that we buy, the inspectors, of course, give you these great reports. And I'm like, well, what do you think about that? Oh, well, I'm not the expert. You got to call an HVAC company. Oh, I'm not the expert. You got to call a foundation company. I'm not the, you got to call a mold company. They won't even remotely touch it. And so to your point, having the relationships are like, but my friends over at so and so will
Yeah.
let you know. It could be great. All
Yeah.
right, so I love what you said here. Let's take it seriously because I
Yeah.
know my brother has a heating and air company here in town, clean air systems, and then they refer with Ace Plumbing. And so neither of them, use or do the same thing. And so they're constantly
Yeah.
referring Ace Plumbing and clean air. And so they go back and forth, but they don't do the money passing. But like you said, so all right, you know that they're good. They're a reputable company. You've been passing things back and forth, but taking them out to dinner, taking a little step further and actually solidifying the relationship of let's
Yeah.
get to know each other. Let's actually be friends. Let's go
Yeah.
golfing. Let's go fishing. Let's do something together so we can get to know each other so we have each other's back. Then, like you said, you've got to come up with the terms. If we're going to pass leads and we're going to pay for those leads, then we send each other a check by the 5th of the month. It's not
Yeah.
ambiguous. It's not just whenever. It's
Right.
actually in writing. And I interviewed one time, a long time ago, this attorney in Texas, and she says, take the legalese out of it. If people cannot understand a contract, then you can't manage the contract. So it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be some legalese crazy thing. Just
Yeah.
simplify it. What are terms that we both understand? Can we pass each other a check by the 5th or by the 15th? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Cool. What kind of calls do we, do what amount with? And so make
Yeah.
it very simple so that you can both or anybody in your office can manage it. It can't be
Yeah.
unmanageable, just simple. And then you can hold each other accountable to it. Hey, we agreed on the 5th.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
but
quarterly,
making it
like
official.
quarterly reviewing it, right? Like if you realize I've sent you like 50 people, you sent me 0. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know, like
And then that might
it,
be a good
like
time to get
yeah,
get
it's
a new
like, I don't
partner.
know if this is working out. Like, why, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
But like you want it to be a win for everybody, the customer too. And so the whole point of it is, an avenue for you to get business, but also for you to just provide more value to the client, right? If if you know other companies that can help,
Mm-hmm.
that will do a great job that you really trust, it makes a lot of sense. Now that customer values you more, right? They're like,
Mm-hmm.
they're super valuable. They tell me what plumber to use, what electrician to use, like,
Yes.
and I mentioned mold remediation or like general contractor stuff because if they have, um, that's great because like if there's like a serious mold issue and it's affecting like the HVAC system or something like right, they're not going to do that. They're going to be like, use these
Mm-hmm.
guys. They understand mold, and so there's that. There's foundation. There's
Mm-hmm.
restoration companies. There's so many. Um, you know, pretty much anyone who's going to be on the home. There might be a roofers. Anybody. Just think
Yeah.
about those type of trades that you want to build a relationship with.
And something key that you're saying here is that it does need to be a reputable company, somebody that you
Yeah.
feel proud to refer to, because then your customer is going to thank you. And you
Yeah.
want your customer to continue to trust you, knowing that who you refer to them for them to call to reach out to is somebody that they can trust. And then they continue to go back to you for, hey, you helped me out so much on my driveway. Who should I use for such and such? So we got
Yeah.
hardscaping companies too, pest control, everything.
Yeah. No, really. I mean,
Yeah.
um,
What Brennan just now said, all of a sudden replace your marketing budget. You just have to take people out for steak once a month. That sounds
yeah,
great.
it's pretty fun. And then once you get to the point, maybe, I think hiring like that person to manage that makes a lot of sense for people.
Mhm.
A BDR, whatever you want to call them, salesperson, to build those relationships with real estate agents, to
Mhm.
do trainings, right? Like come by our off or I'm going to come by your office, real estate agents, and I'm going to train you on HVAC stuff or
Mhm.
plumbing or whatever and
Good
show you what
idea.
to look for. I'm going to provide value. We're going to bring lunch.
Mhm.
Now you're like building relationships, right? And so I think that's a big opportunity for companies to hire that.
That's good. And when
And
you bring lunch, actually bring lunch. So I had
yeah,
people at my office the other day for a meeting. And then at church on Sunday, this was on a Friday, at church on Sunday, somebody comes up to me. They're like, hey, Danielle, I heard there was a meeting at your office and you provided lunch. And they were like, Danielle didn't know what lunch is. She brought us cheese and crackers. So they were
uh,
like talking about it after the meeting. And then it comes back to me and I'm just like, oh, sorry, guys. I was like meat and cheese tray and all kinds. I thought it was
yeah,
fine. Right. But to them, so
yeah, they were hungry.
Yeah,
They
right.
were like, it's 12 o'clock.
Yeah, people are expecting lunch at a meeting, like bring lunch. I was like, okay, my bad.
I think a lot of companies could grow. You got to get the right person in that place to do that you trust,
Mhm.
but so much opportunity for them to grow. You can send them to the home shows
Hmm.
and
Well, I
start
was
doing
going to
these
say the person
community
you're
events.
describing sounds to me as somebody who is all about the community. They
Yeah.
love the community, they love being involved. They're probably a little bit more extroverted. They like
Hmm.
people, hanging out with people. They like going to the chamber events. They like
Yeah.
doing all that kind of stuff. They like to be in Kiwanis.
Yeah.
And then you can get them involved in building those relationships and managing that. And it could be really valuable. I know my brother's company that I mentioned, they started going to the chamber events at the country club once a month. And
Yeah.
the leads that they get out of there, it's for crawl spaces. We're in Georgia. And so they said that anytime somebody sends them somebody from there, it's usually $20,000. Like
Yeah.
it's a $20,000 job. And all they have to do is send their representative to the lunch bunch a month, which costs $25. And they're getting
Yeah.
these $20,000 jobs from it. And so
Yeah.
this person loves this job, this person you're describing, because they're able
Yeah.
to, just hang out with people and be kind and friendly, and
Yeah.
a great, great role.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And community stuff I think is super underutilized and important. It really sets you apart, right? If like, um, especially if you're very clear on like what areas of town do we want to be super known in, right? If you live in a
Hmm.
big metro area, I think it's important to pick like pockets that you really want to become well known in.
Hmm.
And so, you know, it's being creative and thinking of these ideas of, all right, we want to be in this very, high income neighborhood. Well, let's throw a block party. Let's bring the bounce houses, get some food trucks. We'll send out mailers beforehand, get people, excited about this potential event, do the event.
Hmm.
Um, so, I mean, putting on your own events and not just doing some of the community stuff and sponsoring it, but also putting on your own stuff.
A contractor friend of ours up in Minnesota has the biggest Halloween party for their whole town every year.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's Liberty Comfort up in Minnesota, and they have it at their shop. They have it in their warehouse, and it takes time to set it all up, get everything cleaned up. But the whole town comes. The whole
That's
town's
so
invited.
awesome.
Everybody comes. It's a big costume party. It's a big, huge, huge, huge Halloween party. But they expect it. So
Yeah.
now, because it's tradition, the town expects it. And so they're
Yeah.
coming to your shop, they're meeting your team, they're seeing your stuff and your showroom and all of that, right? And how awesome is that? That she owns that. Like nobody else is going to throw a Halloween party. She owns that, and everybody knows to go to Liberty, which is so cool. And then Steve
Yeah.
Moon up in Maryland, every fall, he orders thousands of pumpkins and delivers them to the doorsteps of all his favorite neighborhoods, and they expect that. And then in the spring, he sends
Oh, that's super smart. I like that.
go door to door and they deliver flowers. And so everybody knows from Moon Services they're going to get their pumpkins and they're going to get their flowers. And it's awesome, right? But you can't just say, "Oh, that's a cool idea that Brennan and Danielle just talked about. Let me just try to do that today." No, you need to be working with Brennan to set your
Yeah.
strategy in advance, because I know we're all busy, but work with somebody like Brennan as a strategist to say, all right, what can we do this year? How can we
Yeah.
afford to do it? How can we plan so that we're not putting out fires and it's not stressful, it's exciting? How can we build for that and be
Yeah.
that purple cow?
Exactly. And really plan out for the seasons, right? We know if you're in HVAC, there's going to be shoulder seasons, right? So like it's hard to like be in the season and be like, oh, we got to do a bunch of stuff. Now there
Yeah.
is stuff we can do, but so much easier to plan for that and try to get ahead of it. Um, and really think through how do we actually get through this time the most efficient, best way possible.
Yeah. I hate those
Um,
slow days, and I know everybody does. So let's think ahead and avoid them next time. Brennan,
yeah.
thank you for everything you've brought to the show today. Really appreciate the way that you think with the levers and the constraints. Very, very smart. And for a leave behind for everybody, what can they do to get in touch with you? I know that you said your website,
Yep.
compassfractional.com, is a great way to reach out to you.
Yeah. And I have a couple tools on there as well that um one is basically like a revenue scorecard. It's like a quiz you can go through. It's going to ask you about the different stages, and you'll see like how efficient you are. Another one is basically for you to calculate your booking rate and your closing rate. What happens if you increase those by 10%, increase one of them or increase both of them? Those are areas where you're not spending any more for ads and you're not actually running more jobs. You're just being more efficient with all that stuff. And a lot of times it's several $100,000 more a month that you could be making. So there's some tools on there that you might find useful.
So definitely be sure to go to compassfractional.com and utilize those tools and reach out and book a call with Brennen to learn more. Thank you so much, Brennen, for being here.
Thank you so much.
If you want to learn more about the new flat rate, go to thenewflatrate.com. If you want to learn more about Compass Fractional, go to compassfractional.com. Lastly, don't forget to check out Brennen's free tools by clicking the links down in the description.